Today in the news, we have a story highlighting Western Dubuque High School's record-setting track season. We will take you out to Epworth, where bicycle thefts have been on the rise. And later, we are going to check in with one local school's FBLA chapter who is looking to elevate their future.
Good evening, and welcome to WDHS Weekend Edition. I'm Kaylee Hermson.
And I'm Myra Clausen.
Thank you for joining us tonight. Let us begin right away by taking you out to Epworth, Iowa, where the small town has been dealing with an increase in bike thefts. Our own Leah Willie is on scene now. Leah, what do you have for us?
Thank you, Kaylee. Well, thieves have been swiping bikes in Epworth. In the past 2 weeks, Sheriff's Department has received over 20 reported bike thefts from homes, practice facilities, and playgrounds. Investigators tell us bike thefts often rise in the spring due to college students returning to town, and with more students comes more bikes. We have found out that many of the bikes stolen end up for sale online on local garage sale sites. This morning, we received a phone call from a college student saying several bikes were snatched from an apartment complex. Many of the cable locks from the rack were snipped. We talked to Officer Lyle, and he gave us some insight on how to keep our bikes best protected.
So with the proper equipment, we recommend a hardened steel U-lock with an additional cable. Put your bike into one of the interior loops of the rack to make sure your lock can't be slid off. The cable through your back wheel to secure that. Then you'll take the steel U-bolt, slide the cable through it, and have it through the front wheel and the frame so that everything's secure. I always recommend to people who ask me advice, just make your bike the hardest bike to steal on the rack.
Other than that, he says make sure bikes are brought into the residence at night or a garage and not left out in the yard.
Now that's great advice, Leah. Thank you for the insight on bike thefts happening in Epworth, Iowa.
In other news, Western Dubuque's boys track team has always pursued excellence, but their past season was one to remember. Throughout last season, many school records were broken. The track team had many runners qualify for Drake relays. At Drake, Brandon Beard, Kenny Beard, Gregory Bennett, and Max Steffen earned the titles of champion in the 4x1 and 4x2. Capping off last season was a third place team finish at the state meet, the first in school's history. Earlier today, we were at Western Dubuque and had the opportunity to talk with head coach Ben Ressler about his goals for his young Bobcats in the upcoming season. Hi, Mr. Ressler. What do you think will be your team's biggest takeaway from the success of last year?
I think the biggest takeaway for our young guys is that they saw older guys perform very well. They saw a small school go to state and win championships, and so now they know it's a possibility. So I think belief is the big takeaway.
Okay, after graduating such powerful seniors from last year's team, how is your team responding to meet new challenges of the upcoming season?
As a coaching staff, we discussed that, and we thought we'd have to coach really hard, but actually that team last year led by such a great example that the underclassmen are getting it, and they're just following that example, and it's going really well.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
I'm sure they will have lots of success again this year. It's great to see our local schools represented.
Speaking of our local schools representing our area at the state level, we have to go back out to Western Dubuque to check in on an organization that is making a big splash at the state level, and this time not in sports, but in the business world. Western Dubuque's Future Business Leaders of America has been making a name of themselves the last few years, earning the state title at the annual State Leadership Conference held in Coralville, Iowa every spring. Last year, Western Dubuque also boasted the largest membership in the state of Iowa with 146 members. Throughout the year, the FBLA chapter participates in many community service projects and fundraisers for the March of Dimes of Iowa, who FBLA partners with every year. This year, the Bobcat FBLA chapter was able to donate over $1,000 to the Iowa March of Dimes. We caught up with the president of the winning chapter, Senior Drew Daly, and asked him how they were preparing for this spring's upcoming state competition.
After winning last year's spring state competition, our goal for this year was to win it again. So everything we did this year, that was our main and overarching goal. What we did is we created a class this year for our FBLA students where they can learn how to do some of these different projects and events, and we've been doing many pre-tests to just familiarize ourselves with what could be on a test and we can be ready for it. And we've been working really hard on our presentations. We will go in front of our advisors and other teachers throughout the school, and we try to get feedback so we can improve ourselves, so we can be the best possible teams competing this year at state.
Lots of excellent things happening at Western Dubuque. Keep up the great work, Bobcats.
That wraps it up for us here at WDHS TV. Have a fantastic rest of your weekend. We will see you on Monday evening.